I've seen women that of Indian origin, they tend to be the most strongest women that I often come across. But I want to talk a little bit about the topic around skilling and empowerment. And I don't want us to just stop at thinking skilling and empowerment means the job is done. I'm the Minister for Energy and Climate Change, and the funniest thing that I always find is when I go into a room of a meeting of the energy sector, I'm usually faced with a room full of, in my case, white, middle-aged men. And it's very rare that there is a woman sitting there unless it's my secretariat, and there's certainly not a person there of colour. When you leave India, and I left when I was a baby to go to UK with my parents, when you leave India, you do realise one thing: you have to be doubly, trebly as good as anybody else to be able to achieve. So, first of all, thank you for recognising that, FLO, because often as not, we think of success and we weigh it in terms of money. If you've made lots of money, you're successful. But actually, you have to achieve, and it's the achievements in different fields. And yesterday we were privileged to meet people from across the world from different fields who've achieved against great odds in the countries that they've adopted. And I know that coming into politics, and I know it's difficult in India, but it's equally difficult in the West. And if you are somebody that doesn't quite fit the bill, it's very, very hard. And so one sees these challenges all the time. And so for me, at a very early age, what I recognised was that unless I was very, very much better than my rivals, I wasn't going to achieve. But I've never let an obstacle get in my way. If I can't remove it, I tend to go over it or around it. But I won't let something stop me from doing what I want to do. Some people call it headstrong. I call it assertive. Some people call it, you know, she's being aggressive. I call it leadership. And I think part of our tone has got to be that we need to change our own perceptions of what we see as qualities. And somebody mentioned yesterday, we don't need to look and behave like men to achieve, because we are uniquely gifted with strengths that men often dream of. Patience, tolerance, sensitivity to how a discussion can take many different turns, but actually the outcomes usually are for the better. And my examples are that in 2008 we suffered globally the worst banking crash in history. And I bet any money, if that had been Lehman Sisters and not Lehman Brothers, the outcome would have been very, very different. So I think, and apologies to all men here, including my husband and my son, but I do think that it actually, part of the issue has been that whilst we all know our strengths, we challenge ourselves a little too much to become perfectionists. And life isn't about perfection, it's about a gathering of skills that you have, and then you master them. So for me, I'm short in height, so I know that I've got to have a loud voice to go into a room. It's just nature has given me a big mouth and a short height. However, I make it my strength when I don't know something, and I say this to many of the people that I've mentored on my journey, and I've been doing this for 30-odd years, because the one thing I wanted to make sure was that when my daughter actually went into the world of work, that she wouldn't face the same barriers and challenges that I faced. Sadly, that still exists. And now I find that I'm still fighting some of the battles that we were fighting 30 years ago. But we need to persist, because we can't just give up just because it didn't go right for us. We have to make sure that it goes right for the people coming on after us. So, coming to India, I looked and seen the changes going on around me, and to be quite frank, you're doing a fabulous job here. And I'm really pleased that there is a Prime Minister in place now that actually believes that women should be playing a much bigger, much more observant role. They should be out there, they should be visible, they should be seen, they should be heard, they should be listened to. So my task is always this, to encourage people to actually get up and not be frightened of the challenge, because challenges come to us all the time. You know, you go from childhood to becoming somebody's daughter, then you become some... I'm afraid the Indian pollution gets my throat every time I come to India. However, so I start off thinking, what will I say this morning to you? Because I don't tend to write speeches. I tend to believe that you all know the facts and figures, so I'm not going to repeat them. They're abysmal in the boardrooms, they're abysmal in middle management, but FICCI is a business organisation, and so can do a lot to change the dynamics of what boardrooms and middle management look like. So yes, we need to talk about basic skills. We need to make sure that the millions of people that are in India today, just like, of course, a much smaller population, but those people in the UK, have the right skills to deal with today's ever-changing world. But we need to prepare ourselves for much bigger challenges, and those are about making sure that we go to the next stage, which is management, and then board levels. Now, last year, I decided as a Minister for Energy and Climate Change in the UK that I would look at the energy sector and see how well it was doing with representation. And I got a report done, and it was called Igniting Change, Building the Pipeline of Female Leaders in Energy. And the report came back demonstrating to me what I knew, that there were very few people at senior level in the energy sector. So as a politician, my job is to make sure that I can actually bring some changes. So my challenge to all the CEOs of all the major energy companies in the UK was, please show me, demonstrate to me how you are going to change the middle management of your companies and the senior level of your companies by 2030. I want 30% women and 40% in middle management, 30% at senior level and 40% at middle management. Now this is a challenge that I've given them. It's not mandatory. I know in India it's been mandatory to have one woman on a board. And my worry about mandatory targets is that they can be manipulated. That you can put a woman on a board and it could be somebody's wife, sister, or somebody related. What I want to see is real women, deserving women, women who actually would add great value to those real decisions at the top. Because unless the leadership is strong, to be quite frank, it doesn't peter downwards. And so middle management then never gets bigger and stronger. So I've done it reverse. I've said I want 40% at middle management. And I know FICCI, I know business organisations like yourself can actually work with businesses to demonstrate that this is possible. And mentoring is something that I've asked my CEOs to do, the CEOs of these companies to do. And I've also asked them to become ambassadors. So they are ambassadors in their own organisations to be able to look for people that are up and coming in their organisations and how do they nurture them. Now I want to know where there is a blueprint that says men are uniquely ready and placed to sit in boardrooms. I'd love to know what that blueprint looks like. I'd love to know who wrote it and how it was created. Because to date, I haven't fathomed it out. What I do know is that every single organisation where they have actually taken the decision to put more women into the boardrooms, the bottom line has dramatically changed to a positive, and productivity within those organisations has actually risen. Now that is probably because the workings of organisations at the top change, and that change then filters downwards. So I think we've got some real positives we can do. Now, as somebody who has always fought for women's issues, whether they are domestic violence, social sexual abuse, or any other kind of abuse, I think it is incumbent on us not to think that this is a socialised abuse that resides just in the lower echelons of our societies. These things exist everywhere. And for all of us, we need to be able to ensure that we empower people, whether they are from the bottom of society, where they need our help the most, through education, through skills, through ensuring that we're able to take them on the journey that India, particularly with your young population here, every single member of your population here needs to be a productive member, a member that can contribute to the growth of this great country. And it's always been that economic growth has been generated because women tend to be the biggest consumer. Now, if you get that part of the equation right, that the consumer, the end goal, the end buyer, tends to be the purchaser, tends to be the woman, then why aren't you actually managing your discourse, your discussions around the end buyer? So whether it's television viewing, we have a very prominent figure from the media world here with us. I'm sure his statistics will tell you that the biggest viewer population will be women. And so we need to actually understand what the marketplace asks for. And with all the strengths that come with having a mixed boardroom, the great thing is, of course, the great thing about mixed boardrooms is this, that it enables you to take a diverse view of what your consumers need. Now, I've often been challenged about what do I do, where's my vision going? Well, my vision remains the same. It remains that today in UK we had a report done for us where we looked at the boardrooms and we had 12.5% women on the FTSE 100. We set ourselves a task to make it 25% by 2020. We are well on the way to achieving that. Not because it was mandatory, but we helped, we assisted the FTSE 100 to recognise what strengths they would bring, and we found the women. And I can see just in this room, there would be plenty of women who would make excellent board members, but perhaps never have considered themselves as being a board member, a non-exec. Now, I don't know what the process in India is, but in the UK, we are pushing for at least 50% on public appointments. Now, I don't know what the process in India is, but I'm pretty certain that if you wanted to, from 1.25 billion people, you could find plenty of takers of well-qualified women to be able to take up public appointments. And it's really, really important that if you yourself cannot do it, you need to leverage up somebody that you know who can. We need to learn that the ladder of success goes both ways. That you look upwards, but behind you there's always somebody wanting to climb up. And when that person is trying to climb up, it is incumbent on us that we give that person a helping hand. It is incumbent on us to be able to say, if we are going to change something for the futures of our daughters and our sons, because we have to change the behaviour patterns of both, then we do need to look backwards too. It's really important. I've a great child sitting here, my son, who has come all the way to hear me speak from New York. And he said, Mum, you know what? If all mums were to do what you did to us, and that will show no difference between my son and my daughter. I have a 35-year-old daughter and a 33-year-old son. And I've never shown any difference, neither has my husband. I think it starts at the home. It starts with the way we behave at home with our children. And it's really important that from that first day you see that baby, that you say to yourselves, you know, this baby is going to be treated as equally good and is equal to any other child that I will have. And that's what I've done. I grew up knowing that as a girl, my barriers were going to be bigger and stronger and harder to break. And I grew up in a culture where discrimination was just not on the outside, but inside your communities too. We are bigoted from start to finish for various reasons. And to be quite frank, unless we get rid of those hang-ups ourselves, why would anybody else change? And there's a great lean in. You've heard the thing lean in. I keep saying reach out. My great thing is reach out for help if you need it, but reach out to help somebody if they need it. It must be a two-way process. So I think on my journey, I sit in the oldest parliament on the planet. As a baby born in Amritsar, I always say that, you know, if a baby born in Amritsar can sit in the oldest parliament on the planet, then there is equal opportunity somewhere in the world. You just have to work for it. But that opportunity has to be given to everyone. I know you must be thinking, what is the message she wants to deliver? Because you've got some prominent speakers coming right behind me. So I'm going to ask you one thing when you go from here today as FLO. Who are the 2 or 3 people that you've identified in your lives that you already know would be great leaders? But you already know that they've got barriers that they're never going to be able to overcome unless somebody helps them. That's what you've got to do, is you've got to identify those people. Tomorrow's leaders sit today. They're in everybody's household. Everybody has a leader there who will never have the opportunity because we won't allow the circumstance. And so I think, for me, my challenge is always to you. When you leave here, don't think this was a great gathering. You know, we met our friends, we've done one